Welcome to another episode of the Players Ball Podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens. I'm your host, Alex the Great. I'm joined by MB. We had a heck of a weekend experience, man. A lot of Georgia sports, some good, some bad. And I honestly would like us to start with the bad today. How about them Falcons? It was a awful showing. Honestly, it wasn't an awful showing, right? We were talking beforehand. I think the running backs really got it done. They 150 yards, a couple touchdowns. All of our touchdowns were from the running backs. There were three. Um, the defense started well enough, but the wheels did eventually fall off there. They did get 4 sacks, which, between the last two games, we've like tripled our sack total legitimately. So, that's hopeful, I guess. But um, Kirk he's fallen off a cliff, man. And I don't know where we go from here, right? We have with the Buccaneers winning their game on Sunday and us losing, we are no longer in the playoffs right now. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not very happy with them. I know you didn't watch it live, but what did you get from the highlights?
Um, it looked like Kurt had a decent game. He did have turnover. He did get sacked. Uh, had some completions. I did try and keep up with the game. I wasn't able to watch it live. I was at my daughter's ballet performance.
Whoop
So,
whoop.
yep, she did amazing. Um, but I did check the score from time to time through the Yahoo app, and I believe it was 21-21. Um, then
Going into
Minnesota,
the fourth.
Minnesota scores. They kick off. Ray McLeod fumbles. They get the short field, turn it into another touchdown. Next thing you know, we're down by 14. And from there, it just seemed like the whole thing fell apart. And so, I do think there were some promising moments, but obviously, you can't turn the ball over. You can't give the opponent short field. You can't continue to struggle in the red zone offensively and
Mm-hmm.
expect to win a lot of games in the NFL. So I didn't have a lot of hope going into that game. I think talent wise, the Vikings have been a better team this year um, throughout the whole season. And so with the way we've been playing of late, I didn't have a whole lot of hope going into it. So I wasn't really surprised in the outcome.
It's more the numbers that they were showing during the game that were kind of mind blowing for me. So over the last 4 games, Kurt has 0 touchdowns and 11 picks.
Hmm.
That's nuts, right? And then throughout the Vikings game, he just seemed off, man. Right? Whether it was being getting the happy feet a bit and panicking, not planting his feet before he threw, or because he did have some crisp throws, but the indecisions that he had, the 2 interceptions that he had, were him, man. They were ugly throws, um, where the Falcon really didn't have a whole lot of option to even catch the ball, man. It's incredibly frustrating because I know that we can't bench him. I'm not looking to bench him. I don't the money that's sunk cost, but I do feel like he still gives us the best chance to win. It's just a frustrating place to be because again, we talked about this last week. We've seen what his potential on the upside is. It's just we've been in a valley for so long. I don't know where we go, man. And
Yeah.
especially after losing the division at this, we haven't lost the division, but we are no longer in the lead. The Buccaneers do seem to have an easier schedule for the rest of the way. Freaky was talking about on the radio how they need to go 4-0, and that gives them a chance at a wild card, with some help from some other teams, as well as the division. But I don't know, man. It's gonna be tough, and it's gonna be a lot of upset people because we were really in a position to we controlled our own destiny before this 4 game losing streak. You can't lose 4 games in a row. So whether it was to the Vikings because the Vikings are a superior team, I do agree with that. Um, you shot yourself in the game. Then the 3 games before that, so you didn't have an option to really lose this game, and now you're no longer in first.
Yeah, it's extremely disappointing. We talked extensively preseason and even during the beginning of the season when we were on a good run through October. Um, this team was in win now mode, playoff mode. That's why you went and got Kirk Cousins. I was told by the front office that we were Kirk Cousins away from being that playoff team and potentially a Super Bowl team, and it just hasn't come to fruition. And it's extremely disappointing as a fan. And I'm with you. I don't know where you go from here. You cannot, you can't bench Kurt. You've committed way too much money to him, and not only that, you know, if you do, I'll say it again. If we bench Kirk Cousins in favor of Michael Penix, we are repeating the same bad mistakes that the Arthur Smith administration did in throwing Desmond Ritter in to play the final 4 games of the season 2 years ago. And I think it hurt his development. And I think it would do the same for Michael Penix. I also just think as an organization, can't give you a pass on what's going on, especially because you went out and drafted Michael Penix. So by doing so, you inadvertently sprung this QB controversy on yourselves. And that's all I hear about in the radio, in the media, headlines is, whether or not Kirk Cousins is going to be benched and if we're going to see Michael Penix. And I'm frankly tired of it already. It's
Yeah,
only been a couple weeks.
I mean it's the hot take, and it's not gonna stop unless Kirk has a good game. Once he has a good game, the boo birds will finally quiet themselves. But until that, we're gonna hear it, and it makes sense, right? Do you have people saying that? Oh well, we called it dumb in the moment, but maybe the Falcons had their crystal ball and they saw this coming, right, with his ACL injury and his recovery and his age and all this other stuff. And we talked about that as well. We did want some insurance, and that's what I think Michael Penix was. More than that, because he has the potential to be a good card. He could be a foundational piece for us, but um, I don't know, man. The other thing that you said about Ritter, it's eerily similar to this situation, right? Especially the way that Kirk has been playing. He's been playing. He's been playing like Marcus Mariota over the last 4 games. And for Ritter to go in there, I completely agree. That I think that hurt his uh, his progression as a player, just being thrown into the fire like that. I do not want the same situation for Michael Penix, but in all honesty, I haven't. It's not zero, but it's a very very low percentage that Kirk doesn't finish the season. Whether
Yeah,
it's money, earlier success in the season, best chance to win, there's enough factors that are going to keep him starting the rest of the season. It is going to be curious. One more thing on that. So I was listening to the radio. I had to run out to Walmart, and it was Freaky and Oren, and they were talking about they're traveling to Vegas this week, and you know who the starting quarterback for Vegas is with the injury, Aiden O'Connell. So they're going to be facing Desmond Ritter. He says if the Falcons lose to Desmond Ritter, they may call for Raj's job.
I don't
Is that
understand.
overblown or no?
Is it overblown? Yes, I don't feel like it's fair to blame Raw over the previous administration's malpractice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I agree. Yeah,
it didn't work here with Desmond and Arthur Smith, but that has nothing to do with Raheem Morris. That has nothing to do with Jimmy Lake. That has nothing to do with um, Robinson, right? Like it just the two are not connected outside of
yeah,
the name on the jersey. Now, if anything, you got to look at Terry Fontenot and the front office and those decisions that have been made, right? And I don't know how collaborative it was to make the moves that they've made, bringing in Kurt and signing everyone who they signed and the draft picks and all that. But he's been here for enough that he's got to shoulder a large portion of the responsibility for where this roster's at and how they perform ultimately, right?
yeah. I mean, I don't want anyone fired, even if we don't make the playoffs. I just don't see that being an avenue for continued success. To bring a whole nother group in here, I think Terry Fontenot has done some very good things. Right, everyone's gonna make deals that some people favor, some people don't. For me, I think he's made more favorable deals and draft picks than he's had. He's had more hits than misses, in my opinion. And you keep that, right? We're not in cap hell. He navigated us out of that. And then next year, I think we're even better off as far as money. Um, I want to keep him. I want to keep Ra, and I think despite his it's been terrible, but despite his terrible play, I want Kirk Cousins to remain the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons.
I agree with you 100%. It's just not the right time. But again, we're going to have to listen to the media, the fans and everyone else. As long as Kurt's playing bad, we're going to hear this QB controversy nonsense over and over. And I said it last week and we lost that audio unfortunately, but you look at what the Bears have done over the last decade and it's like they draft a new quarterback. They're with a coach for a year. He gets fired. They're with another coach for a year, and then they're both gone. Right, the quarterback
Hmm.
and coach together. So stability is important. I don't care. I've said it before. I don't care if you're talking about a corporation or a sports franchise. Stability is important to the overall health and success of the entire organization. And turning over coaches and GMs year after year is not a winning formula.
It's not. There's not nothing else to add. It's not a winning formula. It doesn't work. It hasn't been successful anywhere.
But what is a
Yeah.
winning formula is hiring a guy who spent time underneath one of the greatest coaches of all time for more than a decade. And he has now been at the helm of this sports organization for a decade himself. And that would be Kirby Smart.
Has it been 10 years already?
His first year was, I believe, it was 2015 or 2016, so not quite 10 years, but he's right there, right? He's like a
Yeah.
year or so away.
When he came in, how long did it take old Curb to
2
win his
years.
first natty? 2 years and then he went
Well,
back to back?
no. He didn't win a
Oh,
natty.
okay.
They went to the natty in his second year as a head coach, but his first year um under helm was a pretty rough year for the Bulldogs. They made a bowl game, but I think they lost 4 games that year. It was there was a transition period, and it didn't take
Because he
long.
came on immediately after Mark Rick, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But there was some transition. There was some growing pains. It was short lived, right? Like he was able to get to the Natty in his second season, but they didn't win one for several years after that. And I think it's the same thing. You got to at least give Raw one more year, right? You got to at least give him two. Let him really change the culture and do his thing.
I don't even know if 2 years is enough time.
I don't either, but I'm
Is that all
saying
you get?
minimum,
Minimum
minimum.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah, man. So how about them dogs? They did prevail. We were at the game. We went to it was my first SEC Fan Fest. We got some footage for that we're gonna share with y'all. We went live as two old millennials, young in body and mind, but we are we're nearing the top of our generation at this point. I was telling you about my grumpy old man face, where I see kids driving. Like I see a 16 or 17-year-old driving. I'm like, man, that kid's too young to drive. But be that as it may, I thought the pump and frill of the SEC Fan Fest was really dope. I didn't get down there as early as you, so I missed some of that pump and frill. Like you witnessed a concert, and you were there when game day was on. uh, that just seems like a real cool experience. But even just walking around down there, to the later afternoon, I know you said there was some stuff that had broken down, but watching the interviews, being able to take pictures with the SEC championship trophy, there was a lot of cool things. They had the big hats that's posted on the TikTok and the IG. Go look at the big hat with the G on it, of course. Um, It was dope. They put on quite the event, and I enjoyed it. That might have to become a an annual thing. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that an event that I've been going to for years. It's been a while, but I first started going when we were in high school. I would go with our neighbor, and Georgia wasn't even playing in any of the SEC fan fests that I attended. But it's still a good time with activities for kids, a lot of picture ops, as you mentioned. One thing that, you know, we didn't look at when you and I were walking around, but when I was there earlier, you had photo ops with some former legends of the game.
Hmm.
Sony Michelle was out there taking pictures, signing autographs, high fiving, just chatting it up with fans. They had Santa out there to take pictures with. Um, so yeah, it's a blast to go to, and it's free. You just got to get your way to the World Congress Center. Um, when Georgia was in the Natty the first time in Kirby's second year, the game took place at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and they did the fanfare for that. And I did attend that with some buddies, and got to meet Herschel Walker, got to get Herschel's autograph, and it was very similar in the way that it was set up. So the Natty's in Atlanta again this year, so looking forward to the fanfare for that.
Yeah, man. Maybe that'll give you an opportunity to get your rematch in CFB 25. So for the people, we did run a little match, alma maters. We both played a lot of college football 25. We had not played each other until Saturday at the SEC Fan Fest. It was a defensive struggle. Final score was 13-7.
In
We
overtime.
were in overtime, overtime game. I think it was two overtimes, or was it did I score on the first overtime?
Yeah.
It was 2-minute quarters. That the one of the volunteers at the event just was encouraging people to be considerate and play shorter quarters, so she recommended 2 minutes. Um, there were some drops, which is not uncharacteristic of college football. To really spice up the juice, I missed the field goal in overtime, and left an opening for old Matty to to come in there and win it with a field goal. But third down, his player dropped the ball, and then fourth down, there was just no one open. Couple of user picks from me. I played pretty good defense. And I think you played some good offense or some good offensive calls, man. So that was exciting. That was actually that was probably the most fun that I've had at a fan fest in a very long time. Just sitting there on the couch playing video games with one of my boys. Everybody's watching.
Yeah, it was cool. I'm glad we got to do it. I definitely would like to take you on with a team other than the Kennesaw State Owls. They are not the prolific offense or defense that is really fun to play with.
Yeah. And I watched like 2 Georgia State games this year. um, Not enough to know the personnel well enough to know how much I should be passing, how much I should be running. Neither one of them seemed to work incredibly well. Really just those oh man, those bubble screens was killing you.
Oh yeah, you dialed up some pretty timely screens when I was bringing some heat.
Yeah.
Perfect play call. I told you as soon as it went down, I was like, man, you couldn't have called a better call there.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's fun, and we got to get some other matches in for sure.
100%, man. Maybe we play a match live. All right, that would be dope.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Something. Let us know if you think you'd be interested in tuning in for something like that. We'll do it anyways, but I want to know if that's
100%.
something you guys would enjoy.
Yeah, but circling back to them dogs, man, they did. We went from FanFest into the game, and we ended up sitting on the Texas side, but the seats were great. View was great. We were surrounded by Georgia fans in our particular row, so that was cool too. You had dogs to your left, I had dogs to my right to talk with, but it was quite a contentious game. Obviously, it went to overtime. Um, did you see it going that way, or did you think it would be a more dominant performance from the dogs?
No, I was concerned is probably the best way to put it. Walking into that game, it's hard. They say the narrative is it's hard to beat a team twice in college, and so we already had that kind of, we beat them in Austin in October. To beat them again was going to be difficult. We managed to pull it off, but I was concerned going into the game. I said it while we were there. We've got some pretty big injuries on the defensive side, although I think the run defense played fantastic, which Christian Miller was the particular player that I was referring to, and he's a big part of that run stuffing defense. You could see it, against Georgia Tech and against UMass. They ran the ball all over us, but Texas finished the game with under 50 yards rushing, which is huge.
Yeah. They didn't feature Archer as much as I thought they would either.
2 plays.
Yeah. Despite all the struggles with Haynes King the week prior, I thought he was going to get more love, and he didn't. And then you had Quinn Ewers throw 2 picks to the player of the game. What's my man's name? Everett.
Dalen Everett.
Yeah, he had going. So obviously we sat there and watched the game, but going back and watching his individual contribution, he was the right person for that award.
I don't know.
Did you see his highlights?
I haven't watched his individual highlights, but I find it difficult. Now, no disrespect to Dalen Everett. He played his best game as a dog so far this season, and probably his entire career. So he deserves all the flowers that he got. However, I do think at the end of the day, how do you not give the game ball to my boy Trevor Etienne, who is out there running crazy? He scored the game winner. He scored the touchdown going into the second and in the first drive of the second half, so we could go up. He also busted like a 60-yarder ultimately led to a field goal. But your boy Trevor Etienne, he was our offense almost exclusively. Nate Frazier had some.
16 for 94, 2 touchdowns. I didn't realize he got down like that.
Nate Frazier had some good runs in there. He did fumble the ball once, which has kind of been an issue for him this year. But yeah, by and large, ETN was the offensive production for the Dogs.
He yeah, no, he definitely was. I mean, yeah, the numbers say that he probably should have been the, the player of the game, in all honesty. I think, I mean, with it was more of a defensive struggle. Like he was getting off, but it wasn't a whole lot of touchdowns, especially I mean, at halftime it was 6-3,
No, it
right?
was yeah. No,
I'm looking at it.
9-6, right?
No, it was 6-3. 6-3 Texas.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of fireworks.
Right, right. Very dull. Not dull because there was some good defensive play by Everett, but you can't argue with those numbers. He had a heck of a second half.
Yeah, for
I
sure. I
guess
mean,
I mean with them only scoring 22 points, maybe they wanted to lean. I mean, they did lean on their defense. The defense played really good ball. The Texas scored 1 touchdown. Everything else was a field goal.
yeah, I left that game just to circle back, just wondering to myself, how in the world did we win that game? Like, there's very little situations where we win that game, right? Like if we replayed that game 10 times, we'd probably lose 8 out of those 10 times, just based off of the way we played, right? The offense just kind of struggling as a whole. You know, Texas moved the ball between the 20s so well, right? And with ease. You know, Quinn Ewers was getting the ball out fast. We played a lot of man, and they were just, getting loose. It seemed like every time, no matter what the defense lined up in, at times it looked like Texas had the right calls dialed up to beat it. Right, when we were in man, they had man beaters. When we were running zone, they had zone beaters. When we brought pressure, he knew where it was coming from and found the open man. It just seemed like they had answers, and they were able to basically throw the ball at will between the 20s. And it just, when the field shrunk, the defense tightened up. It's that bend don't break mentality, and it really worked in our favor on Saturday night.
They were peppering Matthew Golden, so I hadn't heard of him before that game, and bro had some fire catches. Like I wouldn't mind seeing him as a late round draft pick to the Falcons, man. You know, not to circle back fully, but that he was balling, dog. And Georgia has a strong secondary, right? Malachi Starks, Everett, the transfer portal guy didn't play, but you know he was doing. I guess he got benched because of his play. I don't know. What's the White Hammer's name? What's my man's name?
Dan Jackson, man,
Yeah, Dan the Man Jackson.
the walk on.
Yeah, he was out there laying the wood, man. So yeah, for him to get off the way he did with those heavy hitters out there, it looked good.
Yeah,
But enough about Texas, man. How about them Dogs? You see their draw? How you feel about that? Winner of Notre Dame and Indiana.
I think when you look at the side of the bracket they're on as a whole, I think they got one of the easier paths, and nothing's going to be easy. This is the playoffs, right? This is a team that has struggled, pretty consistently this year. I mean, they're winning, right? They made it to the SEC championship and they won it, which seems ridiculous to say in the same breath as like this team has struggled, but it has not been easy, right?
Yeah, no, it has not.
Games that should have been easy were not easy. So I do think we have the easier path, right? I think we can beat Notre Dame or Indiana, and then after that we get it's Penn State and SMU.
SMU.
The winner of that game will play Boise State,
Mm-hmm.
and we would, assuming we were to advance, we would play the winner of that. So we'll have to play either Indiana or Notre Dame, and then if we win, we'll play either Penn State, SMU, or Boise State. Of those three teams, Penn State has the highest, prowess. Now, I don't know that they make it there, but they did show a lot of resiliency, and they took the fight to Oregon, who I think kind of drew the short stick when it came to the brackets, but
Mm-hmm.
as the season's gone on, they've been the most consistent, the most dominant team in college football. So yeah, I like where we're sitting, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest. Now, there was something that took place during the game that we haven't touched on that was probably the biggest kind of headline of the game, and that's on the final play of the first half. Carson Beck drops back to throw a Hail Mary. The pressure gets to him, gets his arm before he's able to release the ball, and just lays on the field just in pain, motionless. And the training staff, the coaches, they had to come on the field, kind of help him up and get him off. And coming into the second half, he was not on the field. It was Gunnar Stockton who came in to play the entire second half. Now, in overtime, Carson Beck did come in for the final play in which he handed the ball off. However, as the game has ended and they've had time to evaluate his injury, it looks like he has an elbow injury, a UCL bruise is what I'm hearing. But he has been ruled out for the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, no. So Carson being out for the Sugar Bowl, I had not actually heard that yet. That is huge news. It's not super surprising. I know he played that last play, but he wouldn't have even been on the field if Gunner didn't take that massive hit. My man got his bell rung. So it went under review. It was not called targeting. And I think at the game we both agree with that. Have you seen any highlights that have changed your mind since?
No, like I understand. So there's a couple different criteria for targeting.
Targeting.
So one of them is a forcible blow to the head or neck area on a defenseless player. The other is leading with the crown of the head. So they definitely did not lean with the crown of their head. The contact was made shoulder to head. And so the one that would have to be at play is forcible contact to the head or neck area, which it definitely was. But I do not believe a scrambling quarterback is considered a defenseless player. So I think the rule by definition was correctly called. Now, the thing that's crazy about it is, in college football, if a player loses their helmet, they have to come off the field for a play. So if it had been ruled targeting, Gunner could have stayed on the field. The fact that it was determined that it was not targeting, he had to exit for a play. The other thing that is, kind of insane as you watch that hit back, the fact that he held on to the ball during that is kind of amazing. Like he got blasted. And if he
He
had
got blasted. Yeah.
if he had fumbled and they reviewed it, if he had fumbled and it was recovered by Texas and they reviewed it and ruled out targeting, the game would have been over.
Yeah. Yeah, nah, it was amazing. I'm watching the hit again. It was amazing that he held on to that thing. He actually got up and I mean, he needed to take a play off. Like you see his face when he's going down. he got up. He's a true soldier, but dang boy, he got blasted. And I mean, I'm surprised that he's not in concussion protocol, right? Like, so, who is the third Georgia quarterback?
So there was a lot of question on who that would be, and Kirby Smart actually answered it in a press conference after the game, and it would have been Ryan Puglisi, who's a freshman. There's
Mm,
another quarterback on the roster, Jaden Rashada, and that's kind of been the question mark is why, like, what's going on with Jaden Rashada? Like, why isn't he the third string? Why is he the fourth option? I don't know the answer to that. It's just one of those interesting storylines that we may not see answered.
yeah,
But Jaden Rashada has a full year of starting experience in the college football. He was the starting quarterback at Arizona State last year, and he transferred to Georgia. So that's, I guess, the puzzling part about it is out of the three, Gunner, Puglisi, and Rashada has the most like starting experience of them all.
yeah,
And he is more of your traditional dual threat. I told you when Gunner came in, like he is a runner, right? Like that's a big part of his game, but he's not like your prototypical dual threat. He's kind of undersized height wise, and I think he's like a 4'8", 40 guy, so he's not super fast, but he runs hard. He's got a lot of heart. He showed it in that last play. So
there was I'm gonna say this, and we can move off of it. Good luck to the dogs, right? But there was an interview on 92.9 The Game, and it was saying who was the best dual threat quarterback that Georgia's ever had, right? And I was trying to think like, was it what's my man's name? Either way, they said it
DJ,
was yeah, DJ Shockley, and they said it was Stetson Bennett, and they said it wasn't close, and I went back, and obviously they say that, my phone must have heard it, because then, I get on TikTok and I see Stetson Bennett come up in my algorithm. My man had some fire runs in his 2 years of back to back, so shout out to that guy, because I know they miss him.
yeah, Stetson
Especially
had
being
some wiggle.
is Gunner alright? Is
Yeah, Gunner is fine.
okay,
They haven't officially come out and ruled Stetson out, or not Stetson, Carson
Carson?
out, but anything I've researched about a UCL bruise, 4 to 6 weeks, they're going to be playing this game in 3.5. So, like, even on the low end timetable, he wouldn't make it. And I have a
What's the
feeling
designation right now? You said questionable
uh,
for the
Kirby
Sugar
just
Bowl?
said his timetable was unknown.
Mm,
Yeah. I've seen reports that him and his family are seeking second opinions on treatment options, uh, which would lend me to say it's probably more on the severe side. But there's some tricky
yeah,
things at play, right? Because it's the end of the year. You got the NFL draft going, coming up, and he's certainly going to enter the draft. And if they just come out and say he tore his UCL and he's going to have to get Tommy John surgery, like that would make his draft stock plummet. So I think there is some gamesmanship going on. Obviously, he'll have to do NFL physical evaluations and, they'll find out on their own some of this stuff. But I do think, the public's not going to know the full picture of what's going on.
yeah, yeah. And I understand that. That makes sense. Right. His future is on the line.
Yeah.
Got to protect it. All right. Well, yeah, man. So I think the bowls start next week, and then the first round is in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So the first round, um, the weekend of the 21st of December, those
Yeah.
games will be played at on college campuses. So It's Notre Dame hosting Indiana. It's Penn State hosting SMU. It's Texas hosting Clemson, and Ohio State hosting Tennessee, which that should be a fantastic matchup.
That'll really show and prove, that SEC prowess, right? If they can go up to the horseshoe and do the thing, albeit in a weekend that it may not be as packed. It won't be as packed as it usually is because all the students are gone at that point.
No, it will
Um,
be sold out. The shoe will be 100,000 strong.
do you think so?
Absolutely.
Mm.
You know, the thing that will be interesting is to see what the weather is like, because that game might be played in snow. And Tennessee, I mean, Knoxville is not, the dirty,
Florida,
but
right?
it certainly does not get the in season snow that they're used to, in Ohio.
No, it does not. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Some exciting football coming up still, man. I hope some of that excitement is with the Falcons as well. But we did have a good amount of excitement with the Hawks over the past week. So they lost last night to a dominant Denver team who's in the top three in the West right now. Joker really put it on him. He went all the way off. But prior to that, they had the current NBA win streak high of 6. They dethroned or kicked the Bucks off of their win streak. They had some solid wins against some tough opponents, man. They played very good. Trey Young had a game where he dropped 31 and 20 assists, which is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, he's been an assist machine.
Yeah. Yeah, I want his shot to come back and fall, right? Because I think that makes the wins that much easier. But the moves that they've made to shore up the defense around him and his, I don't want to say maturation, but his willingness to be more of a facilitating, pass first point guard is paying dividends, man. They look like a good team. Um, it's a basketball game that I can watch now because I watched the game against the Lakers. That was an exciting game. There's a lot of ball movement. LeBron went off. He was bullying a lot of our guys, but they also had some quality stops against them. The defense is markedly better with Dyson Daniels. He has probably been the steal of free agency. Um, but they look good. They look like they could be a 6 seed, right? That they could finish outside of the play-in. I don't think that is an unattainable game. Now I know basketball is a season of ebbs and flows, so we'll see, what happens next. They could lose 5 games in a row just as quickly as they won that last 6, just because it's a building team. They're not contenders by any means, but I'm encouraged, man. DeAndre, I was trying to trade DeAndre. He should be getting some 6 man of the year looks, right? Him coming off the bench, that has been a revival for his career.
Which we talked about how we felt pretty strongly that DeAndre was better off coming off the bench. He played
Yeah,
better coming off the bench last year too. The puzzling side of it was, the money and how much you allocated towards him to be a sixth man, right? Like he's not getting six man money. He's getting, first five money. And
yeah. First 4 maybe.
yeah. So that was kind of something you and I had already previously discussed. But yeah, good for him having a good beginning of the year. The one thing that I will say that, just to, I guess, put some perspective in the whole situation is this team still lacks depth. And we lost by 30 to the Nuggets. And then it was a game in which Jalen Johnson and Bogey Bogdanovich did not play. And I
Yeah,
think what we've seen so far this season is when you have all the pieces, right? When everyone's available, this team can play with anybody. But when you're missing one, two, three guys, they're bottom dwellers.
They need everyone, right? Especially with the amount of minutes that the stars between Trey and Jalen play. They need bodies that are gonna be able to rest them. Dyson Daniels is playing 33 minutes. Trey and Jalen Johnson are playing 36 minutes a night. That's a lot. We were talking about at one point in one of our episodes, talking about whether what was it, toughness versus durability.
Yeah.
Um, I think Trey is tough and durable. I have concerns about Jalen, especially with how good he's been playing. He's shown that he is who we think he is, right? My man is an absolute hooper, but he hasn't had a lot of full seasons, and I don't want to run him down, playing him all this time. He has the most minutes per game um, on the team, right? And he missed last game. I think it was a sprain of some sort.
They say, but like
Was it just rest, do you think?
I think it's rest, right? I think
Yeah.
it's gaming the system, right? The NBA's got caught a lot of flack for load management, right? That's a
Hmm.
hot topic. So teams are trying to skirt the edge a little bit and not flat out say load management. And I think it said injury slash illness, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, he woke up with a cough, right? Like,
Right.
sure he did.
They find Joel Embiid for that, right? Like they are this season. I think there's an even more increased emphasis on that, like player fines, team fines. Yeah,
Yeah,
nah, but I agree with you. That's some good insight. I didn't think about that.
yeah. We'll
He just
see. I
needed a
mean,
night off because of how many minutes he played. Hopefully.
and we'll see when next game, probably tomorrow night, right? Um,
Hmm.
whether or not he's in the starting lineup. I mean, that will tell you.
And then with Ricochet, he's been playing good defense. He's averaging double digits. I think he's like top three in rookies based on statistics right now. So it was a weak class. He's number one drafted. We want him to be up near the top. So I think he's accomplishing that now while growing into himself. Got a lot of growing to do, but I've seen some good flashes from him as well. So that's encouraging too. And I like that he's still staying in the game as a starter. I know it looks like it benefits DeAndre Hunter to come off the bench. He's playing better with, that second unit with Bogey in there, but we both said it. We want Ricochet to get those starter minutes. If you draft somebody number one overall, he needs to be playing some starter minutes. So,
Yeah, you don't mature, you
whew,
don't grow on the bench, right?
you do not. You do not.
Not to take it too far back, but that's my fear with Gunnar Stockton, right? He just hasn't had a whole lot of
Mm,
run, and it's hard to get that game time mentality and deal with the pressure. If you just haven't, like, repetition is the best way to get rid of any in-game anxieties you might have, or any butterflies, right? Once you've done it 100 times, it becomes muscle memory. And so for Ricochet to be out there stacking the minutes is the best thing possible for him in his growth.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I'm with it, man. And I'm hopeful for Gunner. All right, maybe he can get them legs working. Got to slide a little more. Now he needed that first down, so he took that lick, man. But man, that was rough to watch. Dog. I felt like I got hit when he took that
Oh,
lick. Yeah, yeah, jump scare. Yep.
yeah, I think the
No, man, but
whole stadium just, when
oh
his
yeah,
helmet
yeah,
popped off, it was an audible
collective.
gasp.
Ooh, yeah, no, it was rough. That was a rough hit. That was probably one of the harder hits I remember seeing live in a very long time.
Yeah.
He got rocked, like laid out.
I'll tell you, man, I don't want to get too far off, so I'll use this as a segue. But the Georgia fans absolutely love him. And one of the things that they talk about is just his heart and his desire to be a dog and his willingness to put it all on the line. And you saw that with that play, right? And
Yeah.
there's no better way to garner, fans than to just play with that kind of grit, toughness, and heart. And that's one thing. Um, so you sent me a, I guess, podcast interview, Gilbert Arenas and some other
Yeah.
folks talking
Nick
about one
Young.
of
Hmm.
talking about one of our other stars and how there's just a general hatred for him, and they were just trying to kind of talk about why people and when and like if it's warranted. And I thought the conversation was pretty interesting. So I'll let you give the backstory.
Yeah, yeah. So it was Nick Young and Gilbert primarily going back and forth, trying to decide whether the vitriol that we've mentioned for Atlanta athletes, but for Trey Young, he was recently voted like most overrated player. I think it might have happened in back-to-back years. And that's a crazy notion that Trey is the most overrated player. And that's a vote from his peers. Now, Gilbert made the point that, it was the New York media. Once he put on the villain cape and in the garden and took the bow and, ice trade the game, um, that was when his descent uh, into leaving a distasteful, a unpleasant taste in people's mouths started. Nick Nick Young was on the side of where they started this coach killer narrative and thinking that that was more so on the lines like he was a fan. He hated him in a good way in New York, which I didn't really think I agree with. Like you don't hate someone in a good way, right? You either like them or you don't. Um, but that's where he thought the negative was coming from. I tend to lean um, to Nick Young's thoughts on it, right? That it was Lloyd Pierce got fired, then Nate got fired, and players, I guess, blame Trey for that,
Mm.
which give him some of the blame, but it's not all him. He's also not calling the shots to fire a coach. Right? He's not on the status of a LeBron James. I just don't see that. Trey Young making a call to fire a coach and they're just going with it. There had to be other factors at play. Um, but I, the media combined with notions of players and coaches have relationships. So notions that hey man, you got my favorite coach fired has sullied his name
Yeah, you know,
unfairly, even. Yeah.
hearing you explain it that way, I definitely can kind of see that picture more clearly. But
Mm,
I kind of agreed with Gilbert, and that was, his take is that when he went up and he did what he did in New York City, a city that is a basketball mecca, right? One
mhm.
of, if not the biggest market in all of sports, right? When he went up there and did what he did in the playoffs to a team that, and to a franchise and fan base that has been dying to relive the glory days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they clearly hate him, right? I mean, he was throwing f
Spit on.
bombs, middle fingers, spit. They hate him in New York City, and for him to go in the TD Garden, is that Boston? No,
Madison Square. Yeah.
Madison Square. Uh,
Yeah.
for him to go into Madison Square and foil all of their plans of glory, he became enemy number one, and that is a fan base and a market that has a lot of power to move to basically set the narrative
Yeah.
nationally. And so I do think that played a huge role into that narrative. And a lot of the things that they were hating on were his style of play, right? Like the stop, pull up, hit the free throw line, hit 15 to 20 foul shots a night, pumping the stats. And I see it. Like I get not liking it. Hell, they changed the rules to try to eliminate it. But to me, you can't hate on a man for just playing the game within the rules, right?
Yeah. That reminds me of another thing that he did that I think was pissing players off was the nutmeg. He was nutmegging people left and right. And he doesn't even do it anymore,
He does on
right? But
occasion.
I haven't seen him do it in a couple seasons, right? Just the amount of times he was doing it previously. And he would get in there, players would be pissed about that. Like they would get in his face that he has embarrassed him. All right, stop him, right? That's a legal move. And it was very advantageous because now you're like, oh no, it's partial embarrassment that's gonna slow you down while he's driving to the hoop for the layup, right? So I do think that that narrative opinion that Gilbert has holds weight. Um, but I don't know how deeply the media narrative, like I could see that on a national level for fans and media pundits, right? But for the players to vote him as overrated, that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if that's what's behind it. And I would be curious to know what it is. Is it it can't be just the nutmegs, right? His numbers have been incredible. For them to say he's overrated is nuts. Just absolutely nuts. Right now, he's doing his lowest scoring since he was a rookie at 20 points a game. He's doing 12 assists.
But
I
he's been
mean,
doing 20 and 10 essentially every
double
night.
double his whole career basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other point that I think it was the female on the cast brought up was that or it could have been was it Nick Young?
He had Nick Young had the
So
Christmas hat
one,
on.
yeah. So one
And
of
we'll
them,
drop the link to this in here.
so one of them was saying that he played at Oklahoma and he came into the league as like an imitation Steph Curry, and he is not Steph, right? And his game, in many ways does try to mimic what Steph can do at a lesser effect. And so I could see how people may look at him and see who he's trying to emulate and say, oh, he's no Steph, and then kind of discount what he's actually doing because he's not one of the top four players of all time.
Right, which is crazy. And at this point, I think he's distanced himself from Steph. Steph is one of the four best players of all time, maybe even three. By the end of it, I'm sure he will be. He doesn't pass as good as Trey Young. He doesn't facilitate nearly as well. He can do that, but he's the greatest shooter of all times. He's super clutch. It's not like he's some stalwart on defense,
Yeah.
right? So I get the similarities, but at this point, they're just point guards, right?
And
Who shoot with range. Steph definitely does it a lot better, but you look at his assist totals. They're not even close to Trey.
but that was the media narrative, and I don't think it's fair because, like you said, I do think their games are very different. Right?
Yeah,
They're both scorers, right? And they play the same position, but the way that they go about their game, I think, is very different. Steph is probably the best off ball point guard ever, and
which
Trey,
is a conundrum in and of itself, right? An off-ball point guard,
yeah,
you know?
but Trey is a terrible off ball player, right? Like they just don't attack the game the same way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I do think that just because they labeled him that way, he is unfairly maybe criticized because he's not like Steph, right?
Right. Yeah, you hold him to like you said, an all-time great candle. He's gonna look dim. The other player on there that I think he was actually showing more love than hey was Rashad McCants. Um, and I think he was the one who was saying the Steph comparison might have hurt him, not
Yeah,
Nick Young. So that I mean it was an interesting pod episode or clip from their podcast. They do some interesting stuff. They also broke that Zach Edey story that we was talking about. But yeah, man, I think the Hawks I still want to keep Trey Young. Like trading Trey Young would be dumb. Um, I want to see what the pieces that are set can do, and if we do get that real big man in, who knows what can happen? You know?
absolutely. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, yeah. But we've run up on time, man. Um,
Don't forget to
you want to
like,
close us out? Yeah.
subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, man. If you like the content, uh, leave us a chat. If you hit that notification bell, you'll get reminders of when we post new content. We'd love to engage with you. We appreciate all the love and support, and anything you can do to just help us out with that algorithm, we much appreciate it. Peace out. Have a good night.
Peace.